The sun rose over the African savanna. Golden, radiant sunlight swept across the lush green grasslands, painting an ancient, peaceful picture where life still followed the fierce rhythm of the wild. Amidst this magnificent landscape, Layla, a regal lioness, led the way. Layla was a skilled hunter, a respected leader of the pride, but above all, she was a devoted mother. Beside her was her cub, Keto, a tiny creature relying on his mother's strength and protection. Every step Layla took carried the promise of survival, of a free future on this vast land. However, not every threat comes from nature. There are invisible, silent dangers born from human conflict and misunderstanding. In a single, careless moment, Layla's powerful life was severed. She collapsed. She had accidentally stumbled into a cruel tangle of wire and rope laid by poachers to trap other animals. The scene was devastating. Layla lay sprawled on the cold asphalt road, the snares constricting her body, turning her majestic roar into whimpers of agonizing pain. Beside her, Keto the cub growled, a tiny but desperate sound, trying to chew through the stiff steel wires. In this moment of ultimate crisis, who would hear this solitary cry for help? Who would dare step into the zone of danger to fix humanity's mistake? This is the story of Helen, a brave ranger, and the 15 minutes that decided the fate of Layla and her cub, Keto. Helen's patrol vehicle sped down the asphalt road, warped by the heat. She was on her way to a routine checkpoint, her mind focused on her daily tasks, until a flash of yellow against the black road and green grass forced her to slam the brakes. Through the windshield, Helen saw the scene. Layla lay motionless, bound, and Keto the cub was roaring fiercely, trying to fight something he couldn't bite through. Helen, an experienced ranger, was shocked but not panicked. She quickly assessed the situation. She immediately recognized the wire snare trap, one of the cruelest and most common weapons used by poachers, designed to kill slowly. What made the situation worse was Keto's presence. The cub, though small, was acting on the strongest protective instinct. If Helen approached, Keto would attack her before she could reach Layla, and a pain-stricken Layla, once awake, would also be an unpredictable threat. She grabbed the radio, urgently calling the veterinary team for support. However, she knew too well. The vet team would take at least 45 minutes to arrive, and with every minute that passed, blood continued to seep from Layla's constricted wounds. Layla could suffer from heat stroke, infection, or, worse, suffocation. A difficult decision was made. "I have to act alone," she whispered. It was the biggest gamble of her career. Saving an injured animal was hard, but saving a snared lioness protected by her cub was exponentially more dangerous. Helen reached for her spare dart gun. She had only one dart. There was no second chance. She checked the dosage, ensuring enough tranquilizer to calm an adult lion without causing shock. She used her patrol car as a shield and cover. She had to move to the perfect position past Keto while maintaining a safe distance. She began to walk. Her boots crushed the green grass. Keto immediately noticed the intrusion. The cub turned, letting out a warning growl, a sound of fear and rage. Helen paused, keeping her gaze steady but non-confrontational. She waited. Layla's body trembled, distracting Keto for a second. That was her only chance. Helen held her breath, aiming for Layla's hind leg muscle. Whack! A dry sound echoed. The dart hit its target. Layla let out a final roar of fury and pain, thrashing harder than ever, before her body began to slump. Keto was startled, turning to gently lick the spot where the dart had pierced his mother. While the tranquilizer started taking effect, Helen had to quickly neutralize Keto. She threw a large warning flag in the opposite direction. Keto, drawn by the strange object and sound, hesitated and moved away. Helen had bought a few minutes. She dashed toward Layla, knowing that now she had only a few brief minutes to fight the deadly steel wires. With Keto, though still growling anxiously, temporarily distracted at a safe distance, Helen knew she couldn't hesitate a second longer. She rushed toward Layla. As she got closer, she saw the full extent of the trap's cruelty. Layla lay still, her body heavy, but the green ropes and black netting had tightened so much they dug deep into her flesh. Blood was oozing from multiple places, especially around her chest and front legs. Layla was exhausted and losing blood. Helen knelt beside the lioness, her hands trembling not from fear, but from the pressure of time and the complexity of the task. She placed a hand on Layla's back, feeling the warmth and weak heartbeat, trying to convey a measure of calm. She pulled the specialized wire cutters from her emergency kit. This was the hardest battle. The snare wires were made of extremely tough material, designed not to hold but to strangle life. Helen had to work quickly, but with absolute precision. Every cut had to target the wire, strictly avoiding further injury to Layla's skin. Each one of these wires is a curse, Helen thought to herself, sweat pouring down her forehead in the scorching Savannah sun. She focused intently, listening to Keto's distant chewing sound and the snip of the cutters. The overlapping netting was like a suit of deadly armor. She had to use both the cutters and a utility knife to separate it from the thick fur. It took considerable force with every cut. Time crawled by like a century. Helen felt her shoulders ache, but the painful sight of Layla and Keto's watchful gaze kept her going. Finally, after immense effort, the last wire was severed. Helen carefully pulled the entire mass of netting and snares off Layla's body, bagging them as evidence against the poachers. Immediately after Layla was freed, Helen transitioned into the role of veterinary nurse. She opened her first aid kit, cleaning and disinfecting the deepest wounds. She noted several severe lacerations that needed special care to prevent potentially fatal infection. She injected a strong dose of antibiotics and pain relief into Layla's thigh. "You're okay, Layla," she whispered, knowing the animal couldn't understand her language. But it was what she needed to reassure herself. Before retreating, Helen applied a temporary paint marker on Layla's shoulder so the conservation team could monitor her condition remotely. Everything took less than 20 minutes, but it was 20 minutes of extreme tension. Work completed, Helen gathered her tools and quickly backed toward the car. Now, only a terrifying silence and a sense of suffocating relief remained. She had succeeded in the action, but the psychological challenge, waiting for Layla to wake up, was the most unpredictable. She had to face the fact that the person who just saved Layla's life would also be the one Layla considered the greatest threat when lucid. Helen had retreated, sitting inside her patrol vehicle. The doors were locked tight. Around her, the space became eerily quiet. The difficult part was over, but the most dangerous part was about to begin, waiting for Layla to wake up. Helen had used a strong tranquilizer, but only enough to buy her time for the rescue and first aid. When the drug wore off, Layla would wake up in pain, confusion, and see only one thing: the intruder, a human. Helen was tired, sighing as she wiped the sweat from her brow. She looked at the clock, counting every second. Outside, Keto the cub, having lost interest in the distraction, quickly returned. Keto approached Layla, gently nuzzling his mother. Helen watched through the lens, a moment of absolute bonding. Keto smelled the medicine and the blood, but above all, he smelled his mother. Keto's soft whimper, like a word of comfort, eased the tension in the air. After about 10 long minutes, Layla began to show signs. A toe twitched slightly. Her eyelids fluttered. Finally, Layla opened her eyes. Her gaze was initially blurry, confused, but immediately found Keto. The protective instinct had defeated the drug's haze. She gently rubbed her head against Keto, as if confirming that both were okay. This was the moment Helen had waited for and the moment she feared. The lioness tried to stand up. Her body trembled, her steps shaky. She bent down to lick the wounds that still ached, and then her gaze paused. It stopped at the car, at Helen's silhouette inside. Layla was not grateful. She only felt the intrusion. Physical pain and sudden lucidity combined, transforming into fury. She slowly regained her balance, walked more steadily, and headed straight for the vehicle. Keto stood beside his mother. The pair stopped right in front of the car's hood. Layla the lioness stared intensely at Helen, her eyes the golden glow of the most powerful predator. Helen sat silently, motionless, keeping her breathing steady. She had done everything she could, and now she had to accept Layla's reaction. It wasn't Layla's fault. It was instinct. It was the reclaiming of sovereignty violated by humans. Time seemed to stop. Layla took a deep breath, gathering her strength. Then, both mother and cub roared together. That roar was not the sound of pain like when she was snared. It was a pure, powerful roar that echoed across the savannah, declaring survival and the power that had been reclaimed. Keto, though just a cub, added his tiny, powerful roar, creating a wild symphony. Helen sat in the car, a look of relieved smile spreading across her face. She was not afraid. She understood. That roar was Layla's silent thank you. It was the shedding of the burden of death, the affirmation that both mother and cub were free. After that dramatic standoff, Layla turned away. She gently nudged Keto with her nose, and the pair began to walk. They left the asphalt road, a symbol of conflict, and went deep into the grasslands, where they belonged. Layla walked steadily, without looking back, carrying her new scars as a testament to the life-or-death battle. The scars were a reminder of human cruelty, but also a badge of courage. Helen finally sighed with relief. She started the car, gently driving away, collecting the severed snare as evidence. This story is not just about one rescue. It is about the thousands of other invisible traps lurking out there. We cannot just deal with the consequences. We must address the root causes, the poverty and land conflict that force local people to resort to poaching snares for survival. Helen's courage saved Layla and Keto, but our persistence can save the ecosystem. Join us. Support programs that help rangers like Helen, those on the front lines, and projects that help local communities coexist peacefully with wildlife. Help us ensure that every lioness and every cub has the right to enjoy a free dawn, unchained. If the story of Layla and Helen's courage has touched your heart, don't let it stop here. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. By doing so, you will never miss the precious moments of nature and the silent efforts to conserve them. Your support is the next roar for hope.